On Christmas Eve, a billionaire discovered the hidden value of an amazing girl in rags, an incredible twist of fate that would challenge everything he knew. Harrison Steele, a titan of technology, stood alone in the icy streets of Maplewood, grappling with a life that felt achingly hollow. The flurry of snowflakes floating in the air mirrored the chaos swirling in his mind, a storm of expectations pressing down like lead. He could almost hear his father's voice, heavy with grief, reminding him to uphold the family name amidst the emptiness left by his late mother. Once vibrant and full of dreams, her death had cast a long shadow that marred any celebration. His wealth, the contracts, the accolades, seemed trivial against the yearning to reclaim a simpler joy he hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was the weight of his father's loneliness, or the relentless demands of his technology empire. But tonight, the lights twinkling from the modest homes felt like mocking reminders of something he'd lost. He shoved his hands deeper into his coat pockets, the chill biting against his skin, as he unwillingly sought distraction. Then, he saw it through a frosted window, a small diner, warm and inviting, bursting with laughter and community. Unable to resist, he pushed through the door, the jingle of the bell a stark contrast to his internal desolation. The chatter and clanging plates centered on a girl with worn-out clothes and an ever-present smile, Lily. Her laughter rose above the din, a pure note that struck a chord deep within Harrison's heart. As he took a seat at the counter, he was drawn into her world, where the clatter of everyday life clashed beautifully with the conceptual detachment of his own. Their conversation blossomed over steaming mugs of coffee, and her stories of juggling 3 jobs to support her struggling family painted a vivid picture of resilience. With each anecdote, Harrison felt a flicker of something stirring inside him, a spark of creativity, perhaps, long buried beneath the weight of corporate pressure. It was intoxicating, the way she spoke of her dreams of artistry, inspired by her grandmother's tales of crafting beautiful pottery. Yet when he returned to the elitist world he inhabited, he felt the familiar walls of judgment close in, every mention of her talent met with snickers, her background dismissed as insignificant. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Christmas Day loomed closer, Harrison was ensnared in a web of his own making, a corporate chrysalis he was terrified to break free from. The holiday party he'd organized to solidify his standing among the tech giants was meant to be the pinnacle of success, yet here he was, longing for the authenticity embodied by the girl in rags. The deepening connection he felt with Lily started to solidify into a painful clashing realization. His world was an echo chamber of superficial values, while hers resonated with heartfelt stories that sang a melody lost to him for far too long. Caught off guard by the looming face of a callous associate deriding Lily's passion for art as cute, Harrison's resolve teetered on the edge of fracture. Would he align himself with the comfortable conviction of power, or stand with the girl whose humble dreams breathed life into his withering soul? As the room buzzed with icy laughter, Harrison's heart raced, shadows flickering across his mind. His father's expectations, the cold corporate ladder, and the warmth emanating from Lily shattered his rigid framework of success. All eyes turned to him, the mantle of silence heavy, waiting for him to make a choice that felt impossibly monumental. Harrison took a deep breath, feeling the anticipation wrap around him like a shroud. The laughter receded into a distant hum as he realized that this moment was not merely about his standing in society. It was a confrontation with his authentic self. His mind raced, grappling with the implications of choosing authenticity over the hollow tapestry of wealth and power he had woven around himself. The laughter bounced off the walls, an echo of a life that felt foreign as he stood at the precipice of a decision. Would he finally sever the ties that bound him to a life that celebrated the superficial? In his chest, a restlessness stirred, a need for transformation. The memory of Lily's stories filled his vision, vivid glimpses of a life grounded in passion, creativity, and sincerity. She had spoken of pottery, where clay was molded and shaped with care, much like the life he so desperately needed to reshape. Driven by newfound determination, he glanced around the room, his eyes landing on the circle of elite acquaintances, their scornful comments rattling in his mind. In that moment, he weighed the weight of their judgments against the warmth of Lily's laughter, and a resolute answer began to crystallize within him. "I've heard enough," he declared, his voice steady but resonant with uncharacteristic fervor. The room fell silent, and curiosity hung thick in the air. The faces that had once seemed friendly flickered with disbelief. He wasn't the kind of man to make waves. Yet, as he stood, a greater conviction took root within him. This was not just about choosing a girl from the diner. It was about redefining what success meant for him personally. He approached the round table of his corporate peers, a wave of adrenaline coursing through him. Each familiar face now looked like a mask, dull and lifeless under the glow of the extravagant chandelier. Lily's dreams matter. They mean something far beyond what you are willing to acknowledge, he said, his voice gaining volume, each word carving a path through his fear. As Harrison spoke, he could feel a shift. The air thickened with tension, the cold front of judgment meeting the warmth of his conviction. He saw uncertainty gearing up under the polished updates and technological advancements that filled the room. This is a celebration not just of our wealth, but of the human stories that fuel our ambitions. It's high time we pay attention to those we often overlook. Murmurs erupted among the guests. Some frowned, others raised eyebrows in skepticism, but through it all, he felt unshackled for the first time. The voices of conformity were less potent against the backdrop of the path he was forging. Yet, as he spoke, an unsettling realization wove through it all. What if he failed to convince them? What if his alliance with Lily and her dreams led to rejection and ridicule? The beating of his heart mirrored the rush of adrenaline, urging clarity. Suddenly, the vision of Lily, painting her dreams in vivid colors, crept into his thoughts. He could picture her smile illuminating a dark room, each brushstroke a testament to her resilience. That clarity grew potent. It was a vision of liberation, not just for him, but for others misjudged by society. He resolved right then to meet Lily again, to support her dreams, and find inspiration in the raw beauty of imperfection. Those goal-oriented souls sitting in judgment would not be the guiding light of his future. The evening culminated in a hesitant applause, a ripple of acceptance for something yet foreign to them. But Harrison felt energized, knowing it was only the beginning. The evening air was cold against his skin as he stepped outside, the promise of snowflakes mingling with the glimmer of the stars overhead. He realized that confronting the elite, who bore no real understanding of the world he now craved, was a stepping stone in reclaiming his humanity. As he made his way back towards the diner, an unexpected vision danced in his mind, a collaboration between his technological prowess and Lily's artistry. What if he opened a space to nurture her talents, alongside those disregarded like her? The thought sparked a fire inside him, opening a door to realms he had not yet considered. Yet, the dialogue in his mind was still evolving as he imagined the friction between those who sought power and those who pursued authentic expression. Would the world ever accept this new idea? And as he approached the glowing diner where laughter awaited him, a narrative of tension overcame him. How would he navigate the forces of both worlds clashing? As the bell jingled, he fully embraced the transformation that awaited, ready to step into this new chapter. The thought swirling in his mind morphed into a singular question. If Harrison Steele could redefine success and risk all he knew, what potential lay in standing beside Lily? Harrison stepped into the diner, the warm light spilling out and embracing him like an old friend. He immediately spotted Lily busy at her workstation, her hands expertly gliding over the spinning wheel. She was captivating, the way her brows furrowed in concentration, the gentle rhythm of her movements transforming raw clay into something beautiful. For the first time, he felt an unsettling but exhilarating urge to be vulnerable, to shed his layers of armor. As he approached, he noticed the other customers, weary workers, families enjoying a hearty meal, and artists like Lily pursuing their dreams amidst the bustling energy. His past life seemed to peel away each step he took, revealing a stark contrast between this humble setting and the polished veneer of corporate gatherings. "Lily," he called out, his voice steady yet soft. She looked up, her features lighting up in a way that felt like a flicker of hope. "Harrison, I didn't expect to see you here so soon." Her smile was genuine, free of the pretenses he was now so keenly aware of. "I had some things on my mind," he replied, shifting uncomfortably as the weight of his decision pressed against him. "I want to help you." Her brow knitted in curiosity. "Help me? With what?" Before he could second-guess himself, he divulged his vision. "I want to create a space, an art studio or gallery where artists like you can flourish. A place where talent isn't sidelined by snobbery or wealth. A haven for creativity and inspiration." His words hung in the air, potent and filled with possibility. As he spoke, he watched wonder spark in her eyes, battling with disbelief. "Do you really think it could work? I mean, who would take it seriously?" "I do." The conviction in Harrison's voice startled him, but it also ignited something within. The doubt that had shadowed his conversations with the elite felt insignificant here, in a place and with a person who believed in art beyond the superficial gloss of success. Lily's eyes became pensive. "It sounds incredible, but a project like that would require time, money, and commitment," he interrupted, cutting through her hesitations. "I can offer all three. I no longer want to drown in the superficiality of my corporate life. I want something real. I want this." He gestured around the diner, encompassing the essence of what infused him with such energy. As she processed his words, Harrison's heart raced. Could he really pivot his life towards something authentic? Something that could define success on his own terms? The thrill of uncertainty mingled with fear, but he pressed on. "What about the backlash?" Lily finally asked, searching his gaze for sincerity. "Your associates won't understand. They'll think you're throwing it all away." He inhaled deeply, allowing her words to weigh heavy for just a moment. "Let them think what they will. I'm done trying to appease people whose views no longer resonate with me. I seek the value in hearts and minds, not in wealth and status." Lily smiled softly, but uncertainty lingered in her expression. "And what if it fails? What if it all falls apart?" "Then at least I know I tried," Harrison replied, steely determination underscoring his voice. "Failure won't stop me from pursuing the truth of who I am." She studied him for a long moment, her brow arching as she measured his resolve. "Okay," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's do it. Let's start this journey together." At that moment, as spiritual connections forged through shared ambitions took place, a wave of excitement thrummed through Harrison's veins. But as reality set in, so did the realization that calling his former associates out might not be the only challenge. There would be opposition, not just from those who scoffed at the unconventional, but from his own insecurities that had governed his actions for far too long. As they began to discuss the budding project, practicalities arose and obstacles loomed. Harrison knew that nurturing this venture wouldn't be straightforward. His mind sparked with questions as new fears crept in. What if they faced insurmountable odds? What if the gallery became synonymous with ridicule instead of bravery? Would he still possess the courage to stand firm alongside Lily amidst that chaos? Yet one thought drove him forward. He was no longer alone in his pursuit of authenticity. They would navigate this intricate landscape hand in hand, forging a path that offered freedom and expression. With the diner light casting warmth around them, Harrison whispered. "The real battle begins now. Are you ready?" Lily's smile was infectious, but her eyes flickered with uncertainty, a mirror of his own. Would they truly be able to withstand the storm that approached? In the shadows of looming questions, the night air crackled with excitement and foreboding, leaving both to ponder what lay ahead as the framework of their potential creaked under the weight of ambition. Harrison woke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose and a hint of anxiety clinging to the edges of his resolve. The morning sun filtered through his apartment window, catching dust particles dancing lazily in the air. Each beam felt like a spotlight, illuminating the stark reality of his new path. He had traded the sterile, glossy landscape of the corporate world for potential chaos and creativity. After a quick breakfast, he flipped open his laptop, the familiar work email notifications and deadlines momentarily forgotten. Instead, he started drafting a mission statement for the gallery. It had to encapsulate not just a vision, but also the ethos of what he and Lily wanted to create. "Art for expression, not for mere consumption," he typed. His fingers hesitated. Was this enough of a declaration? What if it sounded pretentious? Harrison's thoughts spiraled into self-doubt. He began to question if he truly understood the art world, let alone if he could redefine it. Just as he felt the heaviness of uncertainty creeping back in, a ping from his phone interrupted his internal battle. It was a text from Lily. "Are we still on for our meeting today? I have a few ideas about the gallery." Her enthusiasm was infectious. He took a deep breath and texted back, "Absolutely. Let's meet at the diner." Arriving early, he again found himself captivated by the vibrant energy of the diner, now a second home brimming with possibility. Each familiar face and each flutter of conversation seemed to mirror his excitement and apprehension for the task ahead. Lily arrived, her eyes alight with fresh ideas as they slid into their usual booth. "I've been thinking about potential themes for the gallery," she started, unfolding a piece of paper. "What if we explore the concept of raw beauty? Art doesn't have to be polished to be profound." Harrison nodded. The concept instantly resonated with him. "Exactly. There's a strength in vulnerability. It reflects the artists and their honest stories. It's like the clay you work with. You mold it into art, but it starts as something unrefined." They discussed various themes, from community collaborations to interactive installations that challenge visitors to engage emotionally. With every idea exchanged, Harrison felt a shift within him, a lingering fear loosening its grip. Yet, as they brainstormed, a darker realization began to surface in Harrison's mind. Their budding gallery could quickly attract skeptics, and not everyone would share their vision. He sensed Lily's enthusiasm mixing with the apprehension he had initially felt. "What do you think the art community will say?" he asked, his brows knitted in concern. Lily leaned back, crossing her arms thoughtfully. "You mean the critics? They might not get it. They might think we're foolish for deviating from tradition." His heart raced. "And that could derail us before we even begin. Maybe we need to showcase why this matters, why authenticity holds value." Lily's eyes narrowed, sharpening into determination. "Then we tell our story, why we believe in this project, how we're redefining success." The atmosphere shifted as they both recognized the martial spirit rising within them. Harrison was struck by a profound realization. They weren't simply artists or business people on opposite sides of a spectrum. They were warriors of authenticity, ready to confront not only critics, but also their own fears of inadequacy. His voice steady, Harrison declared, "Then we need to connect with potential supporters, local artists, patrons who value authenticity over status. We build a community around this idea." Yes, she replied, visibly reinvigorated. But her enthusiasm was tinged with concern. "Do you think they'll understand what we're trying to communicate?" "We can only be true to our vision and trust that others will find their way. Maybe it's time to confront the elite who thrive off superficiality head-on," he stated, channeling his deep-seated frustrations. But as confidence surged inside him, a prickling sensation of doubt reminded him of the very real risks. Would his choice to pursue a path of passion ignite criticism? Would his peers question his sanity? Realizing his vulnerability, yet emboldened by the trust established between them, he vowed to step beyond the confines of uncertainty. They could either wilt against the pressure or rise with tenacity and clarity. As they solidified their strategy, a new surge of determination spurred them forward. But the looming threat of criticism weighed heavily on his mind, the moment when he would inevitably have to face those who had previously shaped his life with their opinions. "What lie ahead will define us, won't it?" he whispered, the gravity of his words thick in the air. Lily nodded, her gaze intense. "Yes, and it starts with our first presentation to the community." As they locked eyes, the challenge loomed larger. How to galvanize a vision into reality against the backdrop of a world that thrived on conformity. With purpose in their shared resolve, they leaned closer to each other across the table, crafting the beginnings of a revolution. Harrison felt the thrill of anticipation in his chest, an undeniable electricity binding him to this new life and this amazing girl in rags. But, as reality pressed in on him with newfound urgency, a question stirred beneath his confidence. What if the very foundations of their dreams were the same ones that marked the beginning of their downfall? The afternoon sun cast lengthening shadows as Harrison shifted his focus from the intimate conversations with Lily back to the gravity of reality pressing in on them. The diner buzzed around them, a stark contrast to the rising sentiment of doubt building in his mind. Engaging as their discussion had been, he couldn't shake off the nagging sensation of impending scrutiny. The mere thought of presenting their vision to the public gnawed at him. What if we fail? It slipped from his lips before he could filter it. The weight of the question hung heavily in the air, threatening to puncture the hopeful bubble they had created. Lily's expression softened at his admission. What if we don't? What if we inspire others? Her voice was steady, yet her eyes reflected a shadow of concern. Maybe fear is just part of the process. We have to embrace that uncertainty and use it to fuel our drive. With each word, Harrison felt a flicker of the confidence he'd cultivated begin to dim. He glanced down at the table, tracing the edge of his napkin. It's not just fear, though. It's the risk of jeopardizing everything we've built up to this point. My career, your potential. What if this project just ends up in flames? That's the gamble we're taking. But think about what it means if we don't try at all. Lily leaned in closer, her words leaning toward urgency. We owe it to ourselves to push the boundaries. You were brave enough to leave the corporate world. We have to see this through, no matter how terrifying. Fueled by her unwavering resolve, Harrison's own spirit stirred in response. What if we host a preliminary meeting? Just an informal gathering where we can present our ideas to a selected group of artists and potential patrons. Just a test run. The idea took shape in his mind, a tangible action point emerging from the darkness of uncertainty. Lily perked up. That could work. We can gather feedback, maybe even refine our concept based on the responses. Show them the depth of what we want to achieve. And if they don't get it, we adjust and push through. The initial thrill of the idea began to spill over, reigniting the determination Harrison thought he might have temporarily stalled. Yes, a chance for community engagement. But then he hesitated, the more calculated side of him rearing its head again. But what if it backfires? We'll be exposing ourselves to criticism. What will I say to the corporate types I left behind? Who cares? They chose their path. You chose yours. If they judge you, that reflects on them. Her words sliced through his reservations. But another layer of doubt crept in, the question of authority. We have to define ourselves first. This meeting isn't just a pitch. It's our identity. What if they see us as novices? And what if we reveal that our inexperience is our greatest strength? Lily interjected. Art comes from passion, not pretense. If we show them our truth, we have a chance to connect. As she spoke, something inside Harrison began to shift. With a grasp of the moment, he truly understood. This venture wasn't just about facing the critics. It was about embracing his vulnerability. Each brushstroke of doubt lifted slightly, revealing glimmers of resilience beneath. That's it, then. We'll put together the meeting and invite a diverse group. Artists, art lovers, and those who appreciate authenticity. Excitement coursed through him, each heartbeat synchronizing with the vision they were beginning to sculpt. Great. I can design the invites and start compiling a list of people, Lily said, her energy palpable, sparking a torrent of ideas in Harrison's mind. They spent the next couple of hours formulating the details, potential guests, an outline for their presentation, and their ultimate goals. Yet amidst their excitement, Harrison felt the tension building within him. A lingering question that hadn't been answered. Would embracing their authenticity empower them against the tide of cynicism awaiting them? The fear of inadequacy was far from gone, but here was an opportunity to pivot from the skepticism surrounding them directly. As they finalized their plans, Harrison looked out the diner window, a wave of determination washing over him. This is our chance to carve our own identity. Lily met his gaze, her eyes alive with purpose. And if we can redefine what it means to display art, we redefine ourselves in the process. But even as they solidified their plans, the undercurrent of fear whispered, a challenge on the horizon. The battle to earn trust, demonstrate value, and to confront naysayers was only beginning. The initial surge of excitement faded into an underlying tension as Harrison considered the recognition that awaited them, the snickers from doubters echoing in the back of his mind. Tomorrow, he said quietly, his hands tightening around the crumpled paper of their strategic notes. Tomorrow we step into the unknown. The urgency coursing through his veins hung, wrapping itself around him like a cold mist. For he knew, now was when the real journey began, and with each thought, the question lingered. Would their attempts to connect with the community emerge as a triumph or a setback? In the stillness of that night, Harrison lay awake, the shadows of the room echoing the frenzied thoughts battling in his mind. Each tick of the clock reminded him that tomorrow held the potential to alter the course of his life. The weight of uncertainty, mingled with hope, created an atmosphere thick enough to cut through. He wrestled with the fear of new beginnings and the unknown. Perhaps he had been too audacious, too eager to discard the familiar safety net of the corporate world. Every reason to stay submerged in complacency surged forth, the steady paycheck, the predictable schedule, the semblance of respect. Yet, beneath it all simmered a buried desire to create, to explore a world beyond the constraints of a desk and board meetings. The thought of their meeting loomed large. It wasn't just a presentation. It was an unveiling, a revealing of him and Lily, stripped to their essence. Vulnerability was not a comfortable garment to wear, but if art were to be a bridge, their authenticity had to be its foundation. In the dim light, he picked up a sketchbook he'd abandoned months prior, its blank pages a stark metaphor for the potential that lay unexpressed. He flipped through pages, recalling brushstrokes of inspiration he once felt, the ideas that had poured freely before they were muddied by fear. The sketches held pieces of himself he had stifled, akin to a voice pleading to be heard. What if he infused that energy into their presentation? Alongside Lily's designs, he could exhibit his own craftsmanship, raw, unpolished, but genuine. Could the act of creating something from nothing, revealing their process, become a strength? He felt a flicker of excitement ignite within him, quickening his pulse. As dawn broke, the light slipped through the curtains, illuminating his resolve. He understood now. It was not the fear of failure that concerned him. It was the fear of obscurity. He could not let that fear dictate his narrative. He needed to be a storyteller, one whose tale differed from the initial characters in his life who held significance and authority. What did they really know about art anyway? Rejuvenated, he constructed his thoughts into a framework for their meeting. It was crucial to establish a narrative that not only presented their vision, but also highlighted their unique journey, a story of transformation and passion. Doubts still loomed, casting shadows over the clarity he began to see. What if they weren't taken seriously? But as Lily's earlier words echoed in his mind, he began to see inexperience not as a liability, but as an opportunity for fresh perspective. They were unburdened by past conventions. Their position could allow for innovation that staid artists might hesitate to pursue. The morning arrived, cloaked in a charged atmosphere. Harrison dressed with intention, donning his favorite blazer, a symbol of his leap into the unknown. As he and Lily prepared their materials, he realized their fate hung not merely on the feedback they received, but on the willingness to reveal their true selves, unpolished and real. They arrived at the venue, a small but vibrant gallery filled with eclectic art pieces. Harrison's breath caught as he surveyed the people milling about, networking, engaging, folding themselves into the world they yearned to enter. Each face was a canvas of expressions, curiosity rippling through the crowd. Suddenly, the nervous rhythm of his heart shifted into cadence with an exhilarating energy. This was not just a gathering. It was an intersection of kindred spirits. Artists, enthusiasts, souls in pursuit of connection. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Lily. Remember, we're not just presenting our ideas, we're sharing our passion. Here, we can be ourselves. As they stepped into the gallery, poised to introduce themselves, the fear that had threatened to consume him flickered away, replaced by determination. But just as they began to set up, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Someone from his past. An influential figure from his corporate life. The doubt that had started to dissipate began to creep back in. Would this encounter be an anchor or a catalyst? They were ready to present their vision to the world, but were they prepared to confront the shadows of their past? His pulse quickened as he recognized the figure weaving through the crowd. Daniel Avery, a former colleague whose charisma had once dominated the boardroom. Harrison had been no stranger to his ambitious drive, able to flip the switch between negotiation and camaraderie with an ease that often left a mark on those around him. And now here he was, the embodiment of every reason Harrison had left behind, juxtaposed against his newfound path. The swirling doubts rushed in like a tide, threatening to wash away the resolve that had solidified within him just moments ago. Would Daniel's presence now echo the very fears he sought to overcome? Harrison thought of his rejection of the familiar corporate safety net. Would Daniel see him as a fool, an artist rudely awakened from a comfortable slumber? He briefly scanned the gallery, searching for an exit, a means to navigate this looming obstacle. But escape wasn't an option this time. He had chosen a different route, one of authenticity and creation. Are you still dabbling in art, Harrison? Daniel's voice cut through his thoughts, smooth yet edged with condescension. Harrison felt the blush of embarrassment creeping up his neck, but he pushed it back. It's a passion of mine now, he responded, steeling himself with honesty. What about the big leagues? Daniel continued, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Surely you know real success isn't found in paint and canvas. The implication was clear. True worth lay in the confines of a skyscraper, not a gallery. Harrison's mind raced. He could feel Lily's presence a few steps away. Her intent gaze pulled towards him. She had stoked the fires of courage within him, urging him to embrace their shared journey to venture into vulnerability. It was time to challenge the old paradigm, to illustrate the value of their collective story. Gathering his strength, he replied, Success is subjective, Daniel. It isn't just about chasing numbers. It's about expressing truth and connecting with others. Sometimes that feels more valuable than anything a stock market can quantify. He felt a slight tremor in his voice, but it steadied against the backdrop of the gallery. Daniel stared at him for a beat, his amused expression faltering slightly. For the first time, Harrison saw confusion flit across the man's schoolyard confidence. The silence lingered, creating a space where the power dynamics subtly shifted. Maybe you should stick around, Daniel said slowly, masking his surprise with an insincere smile. I'd love to see how you've evolved. Harrison glimpsed an opportunity. Not just the chance to assert his choices, but to reclaim his narrative. The very act of standing firm against Daniel ignited something in him. A realization that he had something unique to offer. A perspective unmarred by corporate ambition. He was transitioning from a passive participant of his own life into a fully realized creator. As Daniel turned to mingle with others, Harrison took a deep breath, allowing the turbulent clouds of self-doubt to lift. For the first time, he didn't seek validation. Lily, he called out, taking her hand as she approached. Tonight, we're not just displaying art. We're inviting others into our journey. Let's share our process, the unpolished, the genuine. Let's show them what creation is like. Lily's eyes sparkled with understanding, a reflection of their shared resolve. They had the chance to shape their future beyond the shadows of doubt and criticism. As they prepared to engage with the guests flooding into the gallery, Harrison's resolve only deepened. But the echoes of his past lingered, and he knew he would have to confront not only Daniel, but the whispers of uncertainty they carried. The crowd ebbed and flowed around them, yet amid the excitement, the feeling of being watched loomed large. There was more at stake than just their presentation. There was an entire world beyond this moment, filled with possibilities still uncharted. Just then, deep in conversation at a nearby table, Harrison caught sight of an influential art critic, someone whose vision could either shatter his aspirations or thrust him into the spotlight. The moment of truth was upon him. What awaited them as they opened up their hearts and creativity before judgmental eyes? Could this be the launch into the unknown he had so eagerly sought? The atmosphere of the gallery thrummed with both excitement and tension, an unseen line drawn between Harrison's former life and the new one he was carefully crafting. He stole glances at the art critic, who remained a constant anchor point of anxiety. Could this figure recognize the depth of his artistry, or would they discard it as mere whimsy? Harrison's heart raced, not out of fear, but from the realization that the judgment looming over him could shape the rest of his journey. Lily sensed his internal turmoil. "Hey," she said, her voice calm yet charged. "Remember why we're here. We're not just showcasing our work, we're telling our story." She squeezed his hand gently, reminding him that vulnerability was their greatest strength. He needed to embrace it, not shrink away. As guests moved through the room, peering at their creations, Harrison recognized that some were drawn to the raw emotional resonance threaded through each piece. Conversations wafted around him, snippets of admiration blended with opinions, weaving a tapestry of reactions. The clinking of glasses and the soft murmurs swirled with memories of his past. The boardroom's sterile conversations felt miles away, yet not entirely forgotten. Watching the critic closely, Harrison noted how they leaned in, scrutinizing each brushstroke, each nuanced line. An opportunity arose, and before he could hesitate, he took a step towards the table where the critic conversed with two other attendees. The world hushed around him, the energy shifting dramatically as his gaze met the critic's bored expression. "May I share the idea behind this piece?" he asked, injecting a new force into his voice. The critic raised an eyebrow, surprised by his sudden approach. Harrison pressed forward. "This painting reflects not just a scene, but the complexity of transformation, of how chaos births new beginnings. My journey has been one of shedding materialism for the sake of authenticity, and it's far more liberating than any deal in a boardroom." There was a pause. Then the critic leaned back slightly, compelled to consider his words. Harrison felt the knot inside him loosen. Maybe this was the dialogue he needed, not just about his artwork, but about his growth as an individual. "I find that fascinating," the critic commented. "But do you really believe that emotional resonance can carry value in a marketplace driven by commodification?" The question felt heavy, yet invigorating. It was the very struggle that had propelled him away from his previous life. He nodded, clear in his conviction. Yes, I do. Art can express what numbers can't quantify. It speaks to our shared humanity. The critic paused, this time genuinely intrigued. He motioned to flick his attention towards the painting. Show me what you mean. Taking a breath, Harrison launched into a passionate discussion, revealing the layers both in the artwork and within himself. There was something liberating about expressing his truth out loud, as if each word chipped away at the last vestiges of his fears. Meanwhile, Lily stood by, observing the interaction with pride. This was the Harrison she believed in, the man unshackled from the expectations of his past, standing firm in his convictions. Yet even as he spoke, shadows from the entrance crept in. Daniel observed from a distance, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. There was an unshakable pulse of competition, an undercurrent reminding Harrison that Daniel had not only been a rival in the corporate world, but the embodiment of everything he had tried to escape. The path to acceptance within this new realm teetered precariously. As the critics leaned in closer, Harrison's mind raced with the possibility of validation. Would this encounter finally transform that reckless leap into a worthwhile endeavor? But Daniel's smug gaze lingered, a silent challenge marked by an urgency that reminded him he was not merely fighting for acceptance but redefining his very existence. Tonight is about courage, Harrison reminded himself quietly, locking eyes with Lily. Her unwavering support filled him with strength. Yet, he knew that this moment was just the first of many. The part he played here could mean either ascent or adversity. Suddenly, the hall fell silent as new guests arrived. The moment had come to face not just the critic, but the last shadow of his past. Would he hold his ground against scrutiny, or let the flicker of doubt extinguish the fire of his creativity? What awaited them in this unavoidable confrontation? Harrison took a tentative breath as the new guests filled the gallery, their chatter cutting through the tension that had settled like a thick veil. He could feel the eyes of the crowd begin to swell over to where he stood, wordlessly challenging him to assert his place in this new world. The atmosphere pulsed with the expectations of judgment and the potential for validation. He shifted his attention back to the critic, feeling the weight of Daniel's gaze as a tangible force. The thought crossed his mind that perhaps Daniel had arrived to sabotage his moment, to remind him of the worlds they came from and the hierarchies that governed their former lives. But this was not a boardroom, and Harrison was not the man who once meekly accepted his subjugation. He pushed that thought aside, focusing instead on the critic's intense scrutiny as they examined the intricate details of his painting. What inspired the color choice in this piece? The critic asked, tilting their head slightly, inviting conversation rather than dismissing it. Harrison allowed himself a moment of vulnerability, the corner of his mouth curving up into a faint smile. The chaos of my past fueled the vibrant hues. Life was once so governed by dark tones, saturated in the weight of material success. I realized, to embrace my authenticity, I needed to paint my freedom. He watched as comprehension flickered in the critic's eyes, a reflection of recognition. It was a brief glimpse of a connection he hadn't encountered before. The critic nodded, their face now lit with intrigue. As the dialogue deepened, Harrison felt a surge of empowerment wash over him. Discussion shifted from simple observations to a multidimensional exploration of artistry and existential metamorphosis. He was no longer merely recounting a backstory. He was enshrining his very essence within each word. This was growth. This was the discussion he had craved, a real engagement far removed from past negotiations. Yet in the back of his mind, Daniel's presence loomed like an unanswered question. Could he have some hold over this new life? Would the past always haunt him with unresolved comparisons? Those thoughts flickered in and out, but he consciously chose to reel his attention back to the critic. Just as the conversation reached a probing peak, Harrison felt Daniel's figure inch closer, as if driven by an urge to disrupt. "Still playing the artist, I see," Daniel interjected, an inflection of mockery woven into his tone. "Do you even know what art is, Harrison?" What makes it worthy in the eyes of serious collectors? Harrison's gut clenched at Daniel's blatant attempt to undermine him. The moment surged with an electrifying tension, and in that instant, everything hung delicately in the balance. Would he rise to the bait, engage in a battle of wits that could unearth old insecurities? Or would he demonstrate that his art, not his past, defined him? Lily moved closer, her presence a comforting anchor. He could feel her belief in him stirring, igniting a defiance that pulled him back from the brink of doubt. Time stretched and compressed, the surrounding bustle of the gallery fading into a slow rhythm that beat in sync with his resolve. "I guess that depends on one's perspective, Daniel," Harrison replied, his tone steady and unwavering. "What's worthy is subjective. Some may find value in image alone, but I value the story, the human connection woven into every brushstroke. It won't be found in a spreadsheet." The room buzzed with murmurs of mingling guests, those lines of division forming right before his eyes. Harrison could feel the shift as others began to abandon their conversations and lean in, directly invested in what was unfolding. Was he truly winning them over? Daniel smirked, but there was a flicker of uncertainty now. "And what if your story is just a fabrication of desperation?" he challenged. But Harrison noticed a hint of apprehension beneath the bravado, the cracks in Daniel's confidence. "In that case," Harrison said, the confidence in his voice only growing louder, "it's a sort of desperation that drives creativity, a passion that many fear but desperately need in their lives." The critic leaned in, genuinely interested now, while Daniel grew silent. Harrison's pulse quickened, exhilarated by this moment of reclaiming power, not only as an artist, but as a man navigating the treacherous waters of his new identity. Just when Harrison thought he could solidify his presence within the community, he caught a glimpse of the critic scribbling notes, evidently moved. His heart raced with hope, the intoxicating mix of adrenaline and fear pushing him further. Amidst the anticipation, he turned once more to Daniel, who appeared momentarily disarmed, unable to comprehend this newfound resolve. What lay ahead? Harrison wondered. The tiny flicker of triumph in his chest hinted at something both exhilarating and terrifying. Was this the beginning of real acceptance, or merely a momentary flash before the storm renewed? As the evening wound on, a cloud of uncertainty lingered in the air. A rising sense of what could be, but at what cost? Would he navigate this new world successfully, or would his past reach out to claim him once more? The questions loomed like a specter in the night, their shadows deepening before him. Harrison stood in the gallery, the hum of the crowd blending into a tapestry of noise that echoed his turbulent thoughts. The evening had become a crucible, shaping a new identity from the shards of his past. Each interaction, each challenge, became an opportunity for him to prove not just to others, but to himself, that he could carve out a path defined by authenticity and creativity. As the critic continued to scribble notes, Harrison felt a wave of resolve wash over him. He was no longer the timid architect of his own demise. He had transformed into an advocate for art that spoke to the human experience. He could feel the weight of expectations shifting, not just from Daniel and the executives he had left behind, but from a community that had begun to rally around the idea of meaningful expression. He turned to Lily, watching her interact with other guests, her eyes bright with excitement. She was radiant, a beacon of inspiration. Their joint vision was starting to resonate within this space, a budding ecosystem that embraced the unrefined beauty of artistic vulnerability. In that moment, it struck him. That connection to Lily and their shared journey had illuminated a path he could finally walk with confidence. "Can we share a piece of our story?" he asked Lily, a spark igniting in his chest. "I want the guests to understand what drives us." Together, they approached a group gathering around a canvas they had created collaboratively, a raw expression of their respective journeys. The mingling of corporate colors and earthy tones representing their lives before meeting one another. As they initiated conversations, Harrison shared his narrative of evolution. I spent years entangled in the pursuit of wealth without realizing that my heart yearned for something deeper, he stated, his voice strong, unwavering. Through art, I've unearthed my passion for connecting with others, offering a glimpse into the human spirit that makes us all fundamentally the same. The room swelled with murmurs of admiration, nods of recognition threading through the crowd as real connections began to form. Each piece resonated, flesh stitched to skin, revealing the authentic stories hidden beneath layers of expectation. Lily enhanced their discussion, her warmth wrapping around the audience like a comforting embrace. She articulated the essence of their collaborative spirit, emphasizing not the disparity of their backgrounds, but the resemblance of their dreams. Art is about honesty, she said, her voice calm yet impactful. In its truest form, it brings us closer to ourselves and to each other. The conversations blossomed into a shared experience. Others began to reflect on their own paths, discussing the power of creativity, vulnerability, and what it meant to seek fulfillment beyond conventional definitions of success. Harrison realized in that moment that his fear of judgment had been replaced with a profound sense of belonging, a community forming beyond the backdrop of criticism and derision. Then, in a sudden moment of clarity, Harrison noticed Daniel lingering at the edge of the gathering, his expression inscrutable. It stirred a sense of triumph, and with a newfound bravery, Harrison took a decisive step toward him, leaving Lily engaged in conversation behind. "Daniel," he said, standing firm, "this isn't about fame or wealth. It's about something far deeper, something neither you nor I can measure with numbers." For a heartbeat, Daniel seemed taken aback, but then his gaze hardened, a mask slipping into place. "You've made quite the spectacle of yourself," he replied, voice laced with disbelief. "Do you honestly think this will replace what you've thrown away?" Harrison couldn't help but smile. "I've never felt more alive. This isn't a spectacle. It's an awakening. I'm building something real, and I'm not seeking your approval anymore." With that statement, a transformation took place. Where once there had been trepidation, now there was a profound confidence rooted in self-realization. The duality of their identities, corporate ambitions and artistic dreams, was no longer at odds within him. Instead, they intertwined and formed a unique narrative that spoke to both paths. Daniel's expression softened for a moment, disbelief giving way to something akin to respect. Perhaps he was seeing a side of Harrison that had long been obscured. "You really believe that?" he asked, and this time, Harrison didn't hesitate. "Absolutely," he affirmed, feeling the warm recognition from the gallery behind him, a tangible connection to his journey. Harrison sauntered away, triumphant, returning to Lily and the growing crowd around their art. As the evening unfolded, accolades poured in, and praise ignited a vibrant atmosphere. Local patrons showed enthusiasm in discussing their support, even expressing a desire to partner with Harrison and Lily on future projects. That night would mark a definitive shift for Harrison Steele, a man no longer defined by the echoes of his past, but as someone unafraid to reveal his truth and embrace courageous vulnerability. He knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but he also realized that with each step forward, he was fueled not only by his desires, but by the supportive community around him. As the night wound down, Harrison and Lily lingered until the lights dimmed, feeling fulfilled beyond measure. He had conquered his hesitations, proved his worth not just to others, but to himself, and embraced a new pivotal life as an advocate for authenticity. The applause, the laughter, and the connections forged reflected the regeneration of a purpose-filled life. From that moment on, there would be no more dwelling in shadows. Harrison Steele had not only transformed his professional landscape, but also reclaimed the vibrant artist within, a true pioneer on a path abundant with creativity and honest expression. He knew it was only the beginning of what lay ahead, a venture not dictated by past expectations, but by the unquenchable thirst for truth and creativity woven through every thread of his life. As they stepped outside into the crisp night air, he felt a surge of excitement for the journey ahead. Their projects would inspire others, support budding talent, and most importantly, reflect the power of authenticity. In that profound moment, the world shimmered with possibility, and for the first time in years, Harrison felt truly free. If you've resonated with Harrison's journey, don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now to our channel, so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories on personal transformation. Leave a like immediately to fuel the algorithm and share your profound reactions in the comments below. Together, we can inspire even more stories of courage. And remember to share this video right now with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. Your support matters. This is the moment to show it.